From me and Bob. Give us a meow, Bob. Bob is sniffing my drink. As per tradition, I basically never get a chance to drink anymore, and I don't want to completely lose my tolerance for the rare occasion that I do want to go to a bar. So you guys get to be my opportunity to have my maintenance dose. Cheers. I am very slowly working my way through this bottle of homebrew cocktail that my brother-in-law made and gave me at Christmas, and I've been slowly sipping away at it. It's a very festive, like dark, wintry kind of liqueur. So, yeah, I'm just kind of doing this weekend hangout thing. Last time I had a little Warm Bodies anniversary to celebrate, but nothing this week. Just enjoying life. I'm actually just finishing up a new YouTube video right now. In fact, I'll give you a little sneak preview. There it is. Boom. This is how the magic happens. No more spoilers. Just put the last clip in a couple minutes ago, and now I have lots of fine tuning to do, and I wasn't gonna make music for these videos anymore. I swore I wasn't going to because it's just too time consuming. But every time I say that, I make a video that I get really excited about and proud of. And I'm like, well, I can't just recycle the music for this. Like, it needs to have its own vibe. So, I don't know. Maybe I will occasionally indulge in making new stuff. I think since I've already made my album, you know, the one I released on streaming and everything, I don't really feel pressure anymore to like make fully constructed songs. So I keep, every time I make a video, I try to like make it simple. I say, okay, the music's just going to be ambient. It's just going to be like washes of sound, and I'm not going to put a lot of thought into like chord progressions and structure and everything. But somehow it just keeps happening. The last one that I did for the wildfire was supposed to just be like creepy ambient noises, and ended up being like one of the more cinematically complex pieces I ever made for the series. So I don't know why I keep doing that. I've always had a hard time like scaling back efforts for anything, which is why it's a problem sometimes. But I really don't think I'm gonna keep making like high effort music enough to like release another album of that. I think if I do release another album, I want to like make music just for its own sake. So the stuff I do from now on for YouTube is going to be like, it's got to be just simple ambient, because I can't be spending like 12 hours making the background music for a 6-minute video that 100 people watch. So it's just not practical. But I do want to make music again, like real music. Oh, there goes Bob up on the countertop. Get off. Shithead. What's with cats and the countertops? He thinks because he's on the monitor right now that he's hot shit and gets to do whatever he wants. Look at this guy. Griff asked if when I make music, do I hear an end result in my mind and then try to get as close to that? The kind of music I've been making for these videos, very much not for those. I I have a vibe, like a mood that I aim for, and then I just kind of like watch the video and start playing something and try to, come up with something that fits the flow of the video, which is really a unique challenge for making music, because it's very different than just like making music for its own sake, because you have to like, match the flow of the video. It has to have ebbs and flows and loud and soft, and it has to like follow the pattern of the video, which it's really hard to do the opposite of that, to edit the video to match the music when there's a narration. Bob's like, camera on me, please. He wants the scratch. The beard scratch. Yeah, so I've been yearning to just make songs and be free of that structure, but I'm not going to be able to do that anytime soon, because that's like a whole other career pursuit. So I didn't even think I was going to be making more videos, honestly. I never like officially decided not to, but I kind of like put it on the back burner, and then I thought of this one. I'm basically just waiting for like a really compelling theme to come up, rather than just be like, well, I got to put something out this week, so what is it about? It's about like me making a bracelet, stuff that isn't really that interesting, that nobody actually is going to seek out to watch. So, God, he's trying to get his hairs all over my drinks. Bob, get your ass out of my face. Why do they do that? Why? Why the ass in the face? So restless. Once I start streaming, he goes nuts. Just like human kids. My sister's son does this every time I FaceTime with my sister. He'll just come out of the woodwork, appear out of nowhere, and suddenly need all the attention. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, Griff. Yeah. So I'm going to do a really simple roads piece on this one. The video is about basically like another winter special. I've done a winter video since I started the channel. I guess it was only one. But like, winter is an interesting time out here. It's kind of its own unique experience, and every year since I've started this channel, I've wanted to do like a story about what it feels like this year. And it's very different than summer. It's like, it's kind of a more spiritual time. I think because it's so isolating, and the beauty of everything is just so sharp, and there's not anything else going on. It puts me into kind of a thoughtful, almost like monastic sort of mood. So, and I also end up collecting so much amazing footage, because the weather in the winter out here is just eye-popping. The clouds inversions that happen down in the valley, and the snow itself, the sharp winter sunsets that are just like different somehow than summer. I'm not sure how to ever explain that, but it's just incredibly beautiful. And I've been gathering all this footage. It's like, it's iPhone footage. It's not, I'm no photographer, but still pretty damn beautiful. I was actually contemplating today, like, is it time for me to upgrade my shit? Like, I basically have a nature channel, and I'm doing it all with my phone, which is which is 2 generations outdated. So even by phone standards, it's pretty bad. And I get by, but I can't help but wonder, like, how much better would those shots be if I had, like, even just a modern phone, let alone an actual camera. It's actual SLR cameras are just such a steep learning curve. I've been tempted a few times, and I just get intimidated by how much you have to do to get every shot, all the settings you have to mess with. I worry that I just wouldn't do it because it'd just be such a painful experience that I would just sort of stop taking shots of things because I'm like, I'm busy, I'm driving on my way to the hardware store or whatever. I have time to like pull over real quick and get a quick scan of the horizon, but do I have time to pull over, unzip a pack, pull out my camera, put the lens on, get out my light meter, adjust the ISO and the everything? Probably not. So I feel like I would get a lot less footage if I had a serious camera. The footage that I did get would be a lot better. So I guess it's a quality over quantity question. But I feel like for my purposes, like, I'm not making money on anything. This is not a professional operation. And I kind of think that for my videos, like, quantity is almost better than quality because, like, people are just watching it on their phones anyway. I mean, no one's really, like, tuning into the details of, like, oh, look at that dynamic range or anything. So it's almost better to have, like, just more content, more footage, more different images that I can keep flowing through the video as opposed to, like, one perfect sunset that has, everything just right. Yeah, future. I have some lenses for my phone, by the way. I should mention that my footage is not just like raw phone. I have quite several lenses and filters also that I use for my footage. Though I don't use them. I only use anything maybe like 1 out of 5 shots might use a lens or a filter. Most of them are just the built-in stuff. But for shots that matter, I break that stuff out. I have like a nice telephoto lens. I'll show it to you. In fact, it's right here from Moment. It's pretty serious stuff. It's like heavy, big lens, big heavy duty stuff. And I'll show you what it looks like. So there's Bobo. I can't compare it to the built-in zoom lens because YouTube doesn't let you change lenses on stream, but I'll show you what it looks like if I just put it on the regular lens. Big fan of this lens because it's like, it blurs out the background. It's great for portraits. A little tough to get the range just right when there's no autofocus here. But yeah, very different. So like, look at it now, and then I'll take it off. It blurs things a little. It's like not quite as sharp in the foreground, but it's just, compared to putting it up close to his face, it's actually harder to tell on an animal. On a human, if you put it up close to the face, it'll distort their features substantially. Like I'll show you on myself. Get in front of the mirror. So like if I wanted to do a close up of myself, I get, I get all bulbous and round egg-headed. But if I put this on, then it's like much more natural. It's a whole different shape to my face. I can't tell if it's in focus or not because I'm looking in the mirror, but so yeah, there's ways to do a lot with a phone. I use this one the most, mostly just for like footage of myself and Bob. don't use it for landscape stuff that much. I also have a wide angle lens, which is basically just like a higher quality version of the wide angle that we have built into the phone. It's not quite as extreme, so it looks a little more natural. And the thing a lot of people don't know about phones that have multiple cameras, like the iPhone has 3 different cameras in it. There's the normal one, there's the wide angle, and then there's the zoom. But people don't realize that the other 2, other than the standard ones, are way worse quality. I don't know if they're actually lower megapixels, but the sensor is just much crappier. So like the footage you get from your zoom that's built into the phone is much worse than the default lens. Like it will get much grainier in low light. It just doesn't capture as much light, and lots of other subtle details that are just like, you'll notice it if you switch back and forth to the same footage. It just gets sort of duller. The colors are less vibrant. So having external lenses allows you to use your default camera and still have, you know, the wide angle or the zoom without losing all of the, you know, clarity and vibrancy. So, little tip for you. I also have a macro lens, which I've used mostly for bugs, like the episodes that I did involving bugs, some like extreme close-ups of a grasshopper and spiders and just critters on the ground. It's amazing for that. You can get like right up in their faces and see every little detail. Pretty much impossible to do with the default lenses. And then I have a couple filters. There's one that sort of like softens the light around a glow. Like if you were to be looking at that window, it would just kind of have like this cinematic bloom around the edge. It's called a bloom filter. And then there's like a sunlight filter that just sort of, it's hard to describe that effect. It makes things a little sharper in bright light. Yeah, so I've used a few tricks with my my videos, but even putting those lenses on is kind of a pain. It's like there's been many times where I'm like, this shot would probably look a little better if I dug out the special wide angle lens, but I'm just like, I'm on the move. I don't want to stop and go through all that process of putting it on. So I just get the shot because I'm like, I don't know if I'll even use this. It's going to get buried in my library somewhere. So it's amateur life, you know? If I were a pro, people were hiring me to like do this. If I was making art, I would take it more seriously. But I just barely have the commitment to even like do this at all because it like doesn't really do much for me. It's just kind of like an outlet for the images that I happen to capture that I can't resist putting the story behind. So I don't know. Maybe if I had like a photographer friend, somebody who I knew in real life, who I could like go to their house and show them the camera and be like, just show me how to use this. I can't learn it from watching YouTube videos. I can't learn it from reading websites. Like I need someone to physically hold the camera and be like, turn this dial until this happens. Then I might be able to figure it out. Thanks, Wyatt. Cheers. Just out here trying to look sophisticated. This glass has Mount Rainier in it. I don't know if you can really. Isn't that cool? If I can get it to focus. Claudia, they are pretty heavy, and you can definitely tell, like when you're moving around, getting moving footage, it's a little awkward, but it's like it. I always feel a little nervous that I'm gonna drop it because I'm not used to that weight, and I have to like really keep a sure grip on it. But it's not too bad. I mean, like that one is by far the heaviest. The other ones are quite a bit thinner, so they're not as noticeable. It's really a damn shame, though. Like, all these phones and the front-facing camera is the most unflattering lens on the entire camera. Like, this, I don't actually look like this. Like, it's, if you search for this, you'll see comparisons where people will show like the same face from the same distance using two different lenses of focal length, and it's amazing. Like, people are so much more attractive through normal lenses, through like telephoto lenses, because it just like the wide angle of it, hard to describe what it does. It basically like takes the front center of your face and like pulls it forward, so the sides of your face get squished backward. So like if your face were a perfect square, you know, if you had a perfectly square jaw, it would become an oval because of the focal length of the lens. Whereas like a good portrait lens doesn't do that. It just represents the actual shape of your face. So yeah, the closer you are, the worse it gets too. Like, the closer you get to the lens, the more it distorts. So, photo tips: be aware of that. If you have to use the selfie camera, the further away from it you are, the more accurate your face shape becomes. If you're curious, a lot of whenever you see video of me, uh, whenever you see video of me in my videos, it looks like somebody's filming me, but it's actually this pretty cool little gadget. Since we're doing a photography stream, mobile phonography, I was just using this yesterday. Behold, it's a selfie stick with a mirror on it. So you put your phone here, facing you with the main lens, and then you can see the screen through the mirror. So it allows you to film yourself with the good lens, with the good camera on your phone, and actually, you know, see what you're shooting, as opposed to like if you were to just wing it, you know, just, you know, try to film yourself vaguely. You don't know what you're aiming at. You might be just like way off. You can never really tell. Since we're out here, things are pretty nice. Some kind of bird party going on over there. I made a little path here for Bob to access his party tree. As you can see, he uses it occasionally. Not today, by the looks of it, but he likes to climb this tree. But he won't do it if there's not an easy path for him. So sometimes I have to carry him out here when he's driving me crazy. I have to pick him up and just set him in the tree in order to make him exercise. It's not too chilly at the moment. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's like 30 degrees. That might not be perfectly accurate because the sun was on it, but close enough. Had a nice shower yesterday. It was invigorating. A lot of Texans in the chat today. I would imagine it's pretty comfortable in Texas this time of year. Look at this distinguished gentleman. Look at that arm fold. Look at that curious gaze. Like, oh yes, Are we discussing literature? Bob, you're not allowed to look that smart. We both know you're a doofus. Get derpy. There we go. There's the true Bob. He's no intellectual. Yeah, lick your butthole. Show the people the real you. What does that look? You don't know what I'm saying. You don't speak English. Bro thinks he speaks English. It's 80 degrees in Texas? Are you serious? Texas is weird, man. One time I went there, I think it was sometime in the summer, and it was unbearable. I think it was in the hundreds, and it was so humid. It was like you could not survive outside. It was like you just had to run from car to building into air conditioning, from one air conditioner to the other. That's the nice thing about it here. It does get really hot, but it's never humid. So it's, no matter, even in the hundreds, it's pretty bearable. This is all Fahrenheit, by the way. I know we attract an international audience, but we use freedom units around here for some reason. I actually, it's interesting to compare the pros and cons of those different systems, because like a lot of the units that the US uses make no sense. But the temperature one I actually think is more practical than Celsius, because it's like the whole range is based around like human interests. Like it's Celsius gets weird in the low range. It's like I forget how it works, but it has really large units in the high and lows. The one unit covers a really large range of temperature, to the point where, like, if I were adjusting a thermostat, it would be very hard to get it comfortable, because it's like 3 or 4 degrees Fahrenheit within 1 degree Celsius. I forget how many it is, but it's several. So it's like, it's not very precise for dialing in comfort. It's good for science because it's just like consistent, I guess. But yeah, I remember looking at the differences of that one time, and it was like, yeah, that is an awkward system to use for like everyday activities. I'm sure it's good for measuring, the boiling point of mercury or whatever, but yeah, science only. Don't even get me started on using centimeters for height. I get so lost trying to tell people like my height when I'm in the UK, like 138 or something. But the last thing I want is a culture war in this chat right now, so I'll drop that topic. Going into my numb, brain dead expression, which means I'm scanning your chat. What is Bob doing now? Look at this pose. What is this? Bob, are you like a ham on sale? Why do you look like a cut of meat on the butcher table? Where's your legs, bud? Okay, if you say so. He's just trying to get maximum coverage on that heat pad. He's been doing a thing lately where he tucks his tail underneath himself too, so he looks like a Manx cat. Tina Jones, that's a very valid question for someone who's supposedly a writer. The writing is going really well. It's also going in a lot of different directions. So, as I've said before, I have a full-time writing job now, writing characters and dialogue for this video game, The Bazaar, which is going really good. Having a lot of fun. It's sort of like, it's like a playground. It's like a creative playground. This week, for example, I was just given carte blanche. Like, we need 6 new characters. There's one for burning things, poison, healing. I can't remember what the other ones were, but like a bunch of different categories. And there's like, make up a guy, and then they figure out his personality and backstory, and then write things for him to say. And it's really fun because I get to like just wing it. I get to make up whatever interesting thought comes to mind, and then I write a description of the guy, send it off to the art team, and then like a few weeks later I see their interpretation of my description, which is in the realm of like getting a movie adaptation of a book. It's like seeing your ideas come to life is really gratifying. And they're always a little different. They put their own spin on it. They like add their own ideas to it. So it's kind of like you plant the seed and then something grows out and you never quite know what it's going to be like. So it's really fun. And then I have my real writing, my own work, which I just recently turned in a new draft of what I'm still forced to call a secret screenplay, because they haven't announced anything yet, and I'm begging them to announce something so I can stop hiding it, because I've been working on it for years and would love to be able to talk about it, but I still can't. So but I turned in a draft of that, which I was really excited about. Felt like I kind of knocked it out of the park. And then I went back to working on this sort of like casual work on the novel, The Overnoise, which is actually already out to publishers as we speak. But, time goes along, you have new ideas, you have realizations, and it's just, it's hard to ever stop tinkering with it until it really goes off into the world. So I've been working on that kind of in my spare time. But that's kind of pretty relaxed because there's nowhere to put that writing until I get a publisher. So when that happens, then they'll be like, okay, let's talk about the book and changes we might want to make to it or whatever. And so I'm trying to get it ready for that, so I can be like, all right, I already have a new draft for you. Read that one first before we talk about it. So sooner the better, but it's no particular deadline. So yeah, a lot of irons in the fire, as there has been for a long time. The reason I'm making a new video now for YouTube after all this time is that the workload for the Bazaar kind of slacked off a bit recently. When I first started the job, it was there was a ton of backlog, like just all this stuff that they needed written that they'd been wanting to get done the whole time I wasn't working there. So it was like, here's everything, do it as quick as you can. So it was just really slammed for this several months that I've been working for them. And I just sort of like caught up like a week ago. So now I'm finally sort of at a more natural pace where it's like, okay, it's not going to be like panic every single day trying to get, hundreds of characters written in a really short amount of time. So I've got a little extra time to tinker with other things. I don't have to like put every inch of my spare time into working on books or whatever, because like I have actual weekends now. And DPRK, Cat Respecter, is back. I believe you said it was something like Ministry of Tourism or Cultural Minister or something like that was your job in North Korea. I'm still fascinated by this. I think last time you popped into the chat, you said you had to, like, you were like making the rounds, so you had to go to other YouTube channels and like pop in and say your thing. So cultural ambassador, that's very cool. Yeah. So it's interesting to be on your route, like a mailman going around the neighborhood dropping little tidbits of information. A wave to the cultural mailman. All they have to say is cat. Yes, exactly. Cat, indeed. Respect him. That's a very good question, Ignacio. So my writing is not my job. The writing that is my job is writing that I do for someone else's thing. So I've adopted it. I'm kind of like embracing it as much as possible, and I do enjoy it. But it's very different when it's like kind of anonymous. Like no one's really going to connect it to me. It's not like my face or name will be on the game. I'm very, very deep behind the scenes. So it's like, and it's also very collaborative. I mean, like some of the characters I made up from scratch, like these new ones, many of the characters were already there, and I just came in and like put my spin on them. Some of them were already completely done before I even started. I didn't really do anything. So it's like this wide range of, the world itself is largely pre-existing. I added some nuances to it that changed it quite a bit, but it's still like essentially, it didn't spring from my mind. So it's relaxing in that way because I don't have to like hold on to it tightly. Like if things change that I don't really, they're like things that I wouldn't have done. It's like, okay, well, it's a huge project with a huge company, and I do my part to make it what I think is cool, but ultimately it's not my writing. So it doesn't really affect my writing in the sense of like getting tired of writing in general. Really the only way it affects it is just my time. Like up until very recently, it's been like a solid 40-hour work week. I check in at 9 a.m. Write for the bazaar nonstop till 5 p.m. And then I'm just completely drained and basically stumble my way toward bed. So that was difficult. Like I was working on the screenplay at that time, and that was good because screenwriting requires a little less intense focus. You can kind of pop in and out of it easier, whereas prose, you have to like get behind it a bit and then ease into the momentum because you have to like really capture the flow of each scene, whereas screenwriting is more like moving blocks around. So when I was doing that, it worked okay, but then when I started to switch over to prose again, I was like, man, I really need more time to build momentum for this. So I don't know. Right now, what the kind of writing I'm doing, I'm just editing. It's very light editing of a completely finished novel. So like I wake up, about 2 hours before I start work, and that's my time to work on my art, and I squeeze in, a couple pages of editing or a paragraph or two of writing or whatever during that time, and then I go to work, fall asleep, do the same thing the next day, and then on the weekends is my time to like dig in. But that's working okay. What I don't know is when I get back into like a serious new project of my own, like starting a new novel, and if I'm still doing it on that kind of schedule, that's going to be challenging. I When it comes to that point, I'm hoping that I'm in a position where, I don't know, maybe I can negotiate for like a different work schedule or something and figure out some way to balance the two, because ultimately, like, if I ever realize that my day job is poisoning the well of my true calling, I would have to quit, because I can't allow that to happen. I mean, as wonderful as it is to have security, um, I accepted security with much trepidation. I'm like, I'm not going to let this happen. I've seen this happen to so many people, so many artists. They get tired of, the uncertainty of not having real income, and they get some job and it just devours all their energy and they just disappear. So I'm like, I'm really conscious of that. I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm actually pretty well suited to resist that, because like I don't really care what happens to me. I don't have any dependents. I don't have any responsibilities to other people. I don't have to like put food on the table for the kids or whatever. So like I have the privilege of dying in the gutter if I choose to, without really affecting anybody. So I really have treasured that privilege of being free to destroy myself, without having any moral guilt about it. So I will hold on to that as long as possible, because I never want to find myself in the position where I'm like, well, my art is dying. I am losing the ability to do the things that I care about and to, exist in the world in a way that I feel like I was born to do. But I have no choice, because I have to pay the bills for all these people that are depending on me. And so like, I guess I die, uh, guess I die creatively, as opposed to like where in real life, I'm like, guess I die physically, if that's what it comes down to. So yeah, I guess it's a pretty comfortable position to be in, because like right now I'm choosing to work a stable job, particularly right now because I'm trying to build a house out here, you know, down there. Be nice to actually have a house instead of just a room. Um, so at the time, like, it seems like a really good time to be focusing on income. But once that house is built, it'll be like everything's on the table. I won't be worried about it that much, because like I've never really cared that much about having lots of money. I just want to have like my definition of luxury uh, is just like being free to do what I want to do on a humble basis, like just having free time to write a novel and not grind out, existence every day. That's wealth and luxury to me. So if I can do anything that allows me to just like work on my stuff and not worry too much about like how successful it is, that's winning for me, which is like difficult but not a wild fantasy, Like it's not crazy to get to the point where like you can get by. And particularly the way I'm doing this is, I'm trying to build a home where I have basically no expenses. So the long-term goal is I build this house, I get the construction loan paid off, and then I'm just like I'm I'm free to go crazy, rub ashes on my face, and go running off into the wilderness, waving a stick and screaming at God, and it won't matter because like bills will be paid. I could come back and crash here whenever I'm ready. That's the dream for me. Living the dream would be just freedom to destroy myself at any time, and have a bed to sleep in after destroying myself. It's nice to have small dreams, you know? If my fantasies were like I want to conquer the world, live the life of a luxury madman, that would be really stressful. I'd have to be grinding all the time. I'd have to make so many compromises. I'd have to be like deceptive and corrupt and do shady dealings and screw people over and do all sorts of stuff I don't want to do. So having a very attainable dream, it's actually like the most enjoyable way to live. It's like I don't have to do anything bad to get what I want. I just have to like keep it together a little bit longer and keep being authentic, really. And I should eventually stumble into that position. And then it's going to get really good. Can't wait to get there. I have sort of been there in the past. I've there's been a chunk of years in my life where that more or less was my position. I had enough money in the bank to not really worry about it, and you know that's what happened essentially. Is I did what I wanted to do, and wrote what I wanted to write, and didn't really think about business tactics in the market and whatnot, and you know made some money, but not enough to sustain that lifestyle. And here we are. So now I've pivoted, and I'm like, I'm still gonna make what I want to make and not worry about all that stuff, but I'll just have much more manageable lifestyle, not paying absurd premiums for the privilege of living in Seattle, where I don't even enjoy it, and all the perks that you buy as living in a major city that I wasn't even using. So I think I'm on the right path, essentially. Toru Kono Samurai asks, "What whiskey do I prefer, Scotch or American?" I guess if I had to choose as a broad category, I'd have to say rye. Not not well, bourbon or rye would prefer as a category, because Scotch, there are some Scotches that I really love, but a lot of them I don't really care for. There's a couple brands that I crave, and I guess if it was a competition between like always drinking Balvenie Scotch versus any given American whiskey, I'd probably have to go with that. Maybe that's the more accurate question then. If you had to choose the best Scotch versus the best American. Uh, God, though, I had this 23-year-old Rittenhouse rye. It was the oldest American whiskey I'd ever had. It was profound experience somehow. Like I drank this in a bar in Seattle, and I remember just being like emotionally moved. It was just the experience was so surreal to be drinking something that was almost as old as I was at the time. Uh, just thinking about it being in this bottle for all these decades, or in the barrel, I guess, wherever it's aged. And the flavor was just so complex. It like lit up parts of my brain that never get seen. And I don't know that I've had a Scotch that gave me quite that experience, but Scotch is so much more expensive that like I don't think I've ever had a 23-year-old Scotch. So Hard to say. I never have quick answers for those kind of questions. People ask me like, "What's your favorite anything?" It's never like, "Here's my top three." Boom, boom, boom. It's like, "Well, blah blah blah," and if you do this and if that, because I just don't choose well. It's never a simple choice, I guess is what I mean. Like there's complexity to the things that I like. That's a great question, Ignacio. I've said your name differently every single time. Sorry about that. Um, why do I why do I enjoy making art so much? Uh, I feel like originally, like the thing that attracted me to art, and when I say art, I'm not talking about paintings. I mean like all creative work. Um, it like when I was a kid, I I had this such a strange kind of misery when I was a kid. I was so unhappy for like from the ages of maybe 8, something like when I started to sort of develop a creatively functioning mind where I could sort of put my thoughts into words and sort of articulate things in more tangible ways. Whenever that happened, it was my early childhood. Up until about 14, I was really unhappy because I felt like there was all this stuff happening inside my head. Like I had worlds that I could explore in my mind. At the time they were mostly fantasy type things like daydreams and imaginative spaces that I could picture and images that I could see and feelings that I could sort of imagine inhabiting. And those experiences gave me a lot of meaning. Like they felt like they had meaning, but they were just locked in my head, and I couldn't tell people about them. Nobody wanted to hear like me talk about the dream I had or whatever. It's like, if you probably had a friend say like, "Oh, I got to tell you about this dream I had. It was so crazy," and they try to describe it to you, and to them it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen, but you're just like, "What the hell are you talking about? You had to be there. I can't. These random appearances of symbols and weird stuff. It means nothing to me because I wasn't there." And the feeling of like being that person trying to describe the dream and realizing like I can't. It's gone forever. It's just like locked away, and I can't even really relive it because it's sort of fading, and I don't have any way to record it or to make it, to capture it in some tangible form. And it drove me crazy. I was so upset in this, especially as I started to veer more into like narrative creativity. I wanted to make worlds. I wanted to make people. I wanted to have, you know, conversations between people that I made up, and just all this stuff that was going on in my head. And I was like, how do I get this out? So I would try all these weird, different kind of like pseudo arts, trying to like find a way to express those things. Do drawings that would try to capture some of that, but it's like, okay, I can draw what this guy looks like, but I can't convey the world that he lives in. Can't convey, his relationships to the spaceship or whatever. All the stuff that was part of that world that I wanted to inhabit. And for some reason, nobody ever told me like to do art. Nobody suggested that to me. That there was like paths to pursue that kind of thing. So that fertile self-expression kind of grounds. So I was like reinventing the wheel basically. I was like a kid, and I'm like, if only there was some way to tell a story. So I'm like, what if I, imagined a fake video game, and then I could draw the the character from the game, like in the little instruction booklet, and then write the little paragraph of the backstory, and like maybe that's telling a story. And I just like tried to invent all these different ways. I ended up creating a really complex tabletop role-playing game, like a D&D kind of thing. It wasn't actually D&D, it was just like thing that I made up from scratch because I wasn't allowed to play D&D because it was occultic, because my family was very religious. And all these like really roundabout ways of trying to just like tell stories, essentially. And it was actually that tabletop game that transitioned me into writing, because I had created this really complex story for the game, a campaign as they'd call it. And then the two friends that I had who were into that stuff moved out of the area, and I was like, what am I going to do with this story? So I somehow it finally clicked for me. I was like, books, like I read books all the time. Why did I never think about writing one? I already have written this entire story. It has a beginning, a middle, end. It has characters. It has a world building. This whole mythology. There's no reason this has to be in a game. So I just wrote that story as a book, and that was my first book. Was this wacky teenage fantasy epic, and it was like the release that I'd been craving all that time. I was like, finally, I have a vehicle to make these worlds in my head real. And it was such a relief. I can't even describe the sensation of like, finally, it was like, all the metaphors I can think of are crude, like bodily functions, but just like taking a shit you've been holding for 8 years, like, not that I want my art to be compared to shit, but the release of something that you've been holding and like want to get out. It was cathartic, shall we say. And that was basically it. Like it started with storytelling, but the same principle applied to all other forms of art. It was, music. I've stumbled into other art forms along the way, like making videos, and even the music I made had storytelling elements to it. So it was like all that stuff. It was basically, I think what the core of the pleasure is from creating art is that it takes like the world that you used to only be able to inhabit inside your own head. When other people can come into there and like hang out in the room with you, that place becomes real. It like solidifies, and suddenly it's like, this isn't just something I made up anymore. Now it's a place where we can hang out. So like fans of Warm Bodies, for example, like there are people in my fandom who have read the books that I've written. They know the characters that I made up. They have had their own version of that imagery, play out inside their minds. And so like we can talk about them as if they're real. And we can talk about, sitting in this airplane, hanging out with R or whatever. And it makes it become real in a way. So it's like you're not alone in that world anymore when you're able to replicate it with art, when you're able to sort of like connect to someone else's mind and pull them into yours. Then it's like someone has joined the chat, you're now in this VR space together, instead of just being like me, like, I gotta tell you, there's stuff in here. It's so beautiful. I wish you could understand. And people are just like, okay, if you say so. So that's basically what art is about for me, is just like being able to make this happen in reality, to make it a real place that I can share with other people. And whatever medium it may be, it's the same kind of satisfaction. It's it just expands the world. It makes life more complex and colorful, because it doesn't have to just be, the actual room that you're sitting in. Like I said, my answers to questions are never simple. an hour later. I hope that answered your question. Now I'm going to skim back and see all the chat that was going on while I was rambling. I'll let you look at Bob while I'm reading, so you don't just stare into my slack-jawed face. Yeah, Kelsey. Tell Dima I get it. Harry Potter was after my time, but wasn't allowed to enjoy really any pop culture. I couldn't watch Star Wars as a kid because the Force was occultic. Very repressive regime to grow up under. Hence, probably my creative frustration at the time. But it did force me to dig pretty deep inwards, which is probably, what forced that creative mind out of the depths of me. I always wonder, how differently I might have ended up if I just sort of got what I wanted as a kid and had everything handed to me, because I really had to dig for it. I am not a God-fearing man, Griff. Put more than enough time into that life. Grew up in the church, grew up with all of that. Tried my best to, stay in it, and it was just not meant to be. I drifted apart fairly rapidly in my teenage years and was quite done with it by the time I was about 20, 21. Appreciate the people saying that I'm a good speaker. Easy to understand. This is all pretty new to me, so I appreciate that. People requested beans. Beans will be provided. Look at that. I think his front beans are a different color. Bob, may I? No, they're still black. Okay. Sorry, Bubba. As you were. This is how I make my living. Feet pics. That is a nice foot, gotta say. Look how symmetrical they are. I wonder if I can get the claws to come out. Will he let me? Look at that. It won't focus. There you go. See, this is what I need the macro lens for. Death Blade. He's like, I'm not sure what's going on here. This is not part of our regular repertoire. He's tolerating it. Books I have on the shelf. Let's see. So, all the ones up here are ones I have read. I've finished. Really liked all of these. Except those ones. Those ones suck. And those ones also mine. But down here have a selection of so this is a really cool book that was sent to me by a fellow author, Ewan Morrison. It's not out yet, I think. It's coming out soon. Hopefully with a blurb from me on it, because I gave him one. That was a really cool book. There's another book by him that I didn't really get into. Very different vibe. It's a bit more YA. Couldn't really mesh with that tone. Always had a hard time with the YA tone. It just has this, like, most books in that genre. I don't even know if this is considered in that genre, but it feels like it. That sort of irreverent, sassy protagonist thing. It just doesn't sit well with me. These Patrick McManus books were given to me by my neighbor in a drunken moment. They're just like old man comedy books. This kind of thing. My grandpa loved this guy. He used to read these books all the time. And so I had to take a look. But I've never really been much of like a comedy book guy. I don't really like humor in general, which is kind of weird. I like it in small doses, like as part of drama. But when things are like entirely comedy, I just don't have time for it. Especially a book. Like watching an hour and a half comedy movie, that is cool because it's like a little jaunt. It's a lighthearted break from whatever else I'm doing, and I can stomach that. But the idea of like committing to reading, hundreds of pages of just like lulls, I just can't do it. It's not valuable enough for me. So I haven't read those. I browsed them a little bit. I should return them soon. This I bought. There was something I was researching. So it's about like the senses. Well, there it is. The sensory wonders of nature. And I was, the Overnoise, my new book, is about sound in amongst other things, but it's very sound centric. And I wanted to learn a bit more about like how sound affects animals. And there's a section in this that I read about that was really informative and interesting. And then there's also other senses that were interesting in very different ways. Really beautifully written book. It's unfortunately, like pretty much all nature books these days, it's just like super depressing because like every single topic is like, and this was happening and it was beautiful, but now because of human action, it's all shit. And you just like can't escape from that. Nature documentaries, nature books, everywhere you go, it's just like, yep, we're destroying everything. And it's not a good time sometimes to read about that all the time because you already know. Lord of the Rings. You've probably heard of it. This obscure indie author. I've read that a couple times before, but just picked it up for my sleep read. And then this book was another one that was sent to me by a fellow author. This guy is a local, lives in the Seattle area, I think, and he did a very similar thing to me. I did a post about this book on Instagram. Um, Maybe I should post that here as a short. But very similar situation. He bought a cabin that was essentially gutted like mine was. It had to be redone from scratch, more or less, and did the same thing I did here. Um, Main difference being that he didn't actually live in it. It was just a getaway for him. So it was a very different experience, but it was really interesting reading about it because it was so familiar to me in so many ways. The clueless craftsman thing, exactly, Tina, is like exactly what my whole thing was. If you're, if you follow this YouTube channel, you've seen what my whole experience of just being a dumbass. Like he said clueless craftsman, I said DIY dumbass. we both had the alliterative self-deprecation names. But yeah, like very similar path that we went through. A lot of that book is just like anecdotes about the different things he went through while trying to turn this cabin into a livable space. And so much of it was just like painfully familiar. It's like, oh God, I can't even read this. I just finished doing this myself. But other times it was kind of cathartic because it was like, okay, like my experience, other people have done this too. Other people have struggled in the same way. It was interesting. Like I didn't have time to get into much detail in my review on Instagram because it was a minute and a half long, and I was like trying to sum up everything in a few seconds. But one thing I didn't get into is how different. While I was reading this book, it was like I was struck so strongly by how social his experience was. Like he did the whole thing. There was almost nothing he did on the house alone. It was every time he had a project, he would invite friends to come out and help him work on stuff, and it was kind of mind blowing to me because I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, why are his friends from the city like spending their weekend coming out to his cabin, just like slaving away on like digging ditches and just like doing all the work with him, but also for him, and it was just a very different approach. Like by the time I got to the end of the book, I kind of got a better picture of what it was about, which was that like because he didn't live in it, the cabin was more of kind of like a community service in a way. Like his friends would come out and have their getaways in this cabin, so they helped him work on it because they were going to be using it, and it was like kind of a thing that everybody got to share. And also I realized he was way younger than me also. Like I think he was like 25 or something when he was doing this, so I realized that's very different too. People just have more free time. People are more down to just do whatever at that age. Whereas at my age, I'm like, I want to be left alone, and I want other people to give me the same courtesy. So I would never dream of like hitting up my friends in Seattle and be like, hey, I'm digging a ditch out here. Would you guys spend your weekend, drive 4 hours out from Seattle to help me dig this hole? No, would never do it. So I didn't have anyone do anything for me here. I hired for the drywall because I just wasn't ready to take on that craft, and the electrical. Some of it. I did a little bit of electrical myself, but everything else I did completely two-handed. And people are always like, why don't you, get people to come out and help with this? And I'm just like, it seems harder to do that than it is to do it myself. Just trying to manage people and like putting them out and all the favors that I would owe after calling in that many favors. And I'm just like, I'd rather just have it take a long time and get it done at my own pace. So I think, and also part of it is the distance, like his place, I think, was about an hour and a half from Seattle. which is much more manageable. People can just pop out for a day or something, and it's not a big deal. I'm 4.5 hours from Seattle. So for anybody to visit me out here, it's a commitment. And people have done it. They have, volunteered to come out and visit me. But I would never ask it of anyone. Certainly not to just to help me do work. People have offered to help me do work. People offered to help with the siding, which was really hard to do solo, honestly. That was the one project that I could have really used some help, because it's like, imagine holding 4 by 8 foot panels of plywood and holding them against the house, getting them perfectly square and lined up with the other panels, and then like just leaning against it with your shoulder and shooting nails into it with a nail gun. That was really dumb. Like, that would have been so much easier with someone to hold the thing while I nailed it. But my mom and my brother offered to help with that one. And I was going to take them up on it, but then it just became, okay, well, which week can we do this? Like, we have free time on these 2 particular days, like 6 weeks from now, and we're going to have to get it all done that in really short amount of time. And we're going to have to figure out, where's my mom going to sleep? I got to get her a hotel, got to like get food for everybody. And it's just like, this isn't worth it. I appreciate the gesture, but like, it's just more stressful to have to like manage a crew than it is to just take my time and do it on my own slowly. And I stand by that. I mean, it was difficult, but it was really low stress because there was no rush. It took me several weeks to get it done. But I got it done, and it looks pretty damn good. Since we're on the topic, I guess I might as well show it to you. Someone asking where I live. Someone speculating Ellensburg. I wish I lived in Ellensburg. Ellensburg was actually the target, my target town when I had sort of a doubt crisis recently. And I was starting to think, like, I don't know if I can stand the isolation. I don't know if I can live out here and have, no friends, no dating pool, just like barren wilderness for the rest of my life. And I started to think, like, maybe I should go somewhere where it's like kind of rural, but there's still some culture. And Ellensburg was like my big city. So I thought about it. No, I'm nowhere. I mean, technically I'm in Brewster. The nearest town is on the other side of that mountain, somewhere over there. It's about a half-hour drive. Yeah, and then it's just like orchards and stuff down there. But yeah, there's nothing out here. There's nothing. Brewster is completely dead. There's no culture whatsoever there. There's literally not a single bar. There's no community events of any kind. There's no third places. Nobody hangs out. Everybody just drives into town to get their groceries and drives home, and you'll never see them unless you already know them. And that's what I've found small town life to be about. I always kind of thought that it would be more hospitable, but people don't really have the concept of like mingling and gathering in town, in small towns. It's just like you go to your buddy's house and they have their buddies over, and that's how it works out. But if you don't have buddies already, you're shit out of luck. So that's been my experience. You go into the towns around here and they're just empty. There's nothing going on. So this is my sighting. This spot in particular was really hard. Getting up on that high ladder, holding these panels up there, and using a very dangerous nail gun. Getting this trim board all the way across and ending up relatively straight and level was quite an achievement. My caulking job is already fucked up. As you can see, my trim isn't perfect. I could not find a way to get it, completely flush because there's just so many variables with the warped wood and everything. And then the caulk just split apart. So fuck it. It seems to be okay. It's heavily oiled, so it shouldn't matter. Getting those vents on the soffits, that was a pain in the ass. Was pretty proud of that. I built all of that. There was just bare rafters there before. My crowning achievement, honestly, is probably this shower. Really damn proud of this. This was, simpler in a lot of ways than doing this stuff. And yes, I still use this. My decor plant is dead. I just took a shower yesterday, in fact. I don't like that there's droplets of water at the top there. It's supposed to be self-draining. Oh God, did I fuck up my shower? It's supposed to be freeze-proof because all the water comes out here when you turn it off. But I don't know if I trust it. I guess we'll find out next time I turn it on. I'm not gonna do it now. Yeah, very invigorating shower experience. What I do is I just straight up walk out here naked. I don't even use a bathrobe anymore, or sandals for that matter. I just go commando, take the shower, and then run like hell to get back inside. It's actually not nearly as painful as you would expect. Whew. Yeah, the Christmas lights are definitely an all winter thing. I may just leave them up all year. They're not really just for the festive qualities. They're so I can actually see, because I have to go in and out of doors a lot. My bathroom's out there. My main fridge is out there. So I'm constantly having to put these kinky Crocs on. Look at that. Have you ever seen a Croc with buckles and chains? This never ceases to crack me up. Cue the 9-inch nails. But yeah, I have to go out a lot. So when I go out to the fridge at night, I need to be able to see where I'm going. So I'll fire them up just for your viewing pleasure. They normally would come on in an hour or so, but I'll do it manually. Got my little timer thing here. How about that? Ain't that cozy? Yep, Wyatt, that's exactly what the song that I put on my Instagram story when I first cracked that joke. It fit really well. So yeah, when I go take my walks, which I should be doing any minute now, coming back over the hill and seeing these lights glowing on the horizon is just really comforting. I'm accumulating trash here right now because I don't have a way to get trash cans up and down the hill because I can't get my car down here anymore. I have this sled for that purpose. So I've just got my trash operation is all out of whack. I need to pile all the trash bags into the sled and haul it up the hill to my car to take it to the dump. But it's sort of gotten away from me. So life is interesting out here. Yeah, Matt and I'm conscious of that. The problem is I want snow to be there because it insulates my crawl space where all my plumbing is. And the more insulation I have on there, the less likely my pipes are to freeze, which happens pretty bad out here. Even to like real houses that have the proper thickness of walls and all the proper stuff, they still freeze pipes because it will get, you know, -30 in the wind sometimes. So I let the snow stay piled up on purpose. It may eventually rot a little bit, but I'm not that worried about it. I think by the time that becomes an issue, I'll be long since out of here, and it'll change up drastically when it's just a guest house. You would think so, Tina. Bears and scavengers, but I've had those bags out there for quite a while. I've had exposed trash a lot this winter because I not being able to get my car down here has really thrown a wrench into my process. And there apparently are bears around here, but nobody's come looking for the food. I don't know if maybe because it freezes, maybe it doesn't put off scent because it's frozen. Not really sure how that works, but it hasn't been an issue yet. And I have some juicy trash out there. Like there's meat scraps and everything. So I just haven't been able to get the cans down here. Yeah, Bob fights them off, certainly. And yeah, Eva, update on building the house. It's underway. The stage that I'm at right now is just I'm waiting for an updated bid for the material costs that have changed since the bid was made last fall. So I'm waiting for the builder to get me the update. Presumably it won't have changed much. Might have gone up a tiny bit. Who maybe could even have gone down, but should be within range. And then I just have to take that number and report that to the bank and get my construction loan. And then once the ground thaws, we'll hit it, dig in, start building. Everything's ready to go. I've got the plans. I've got the permit. Just waiting for spring. So I'm so excited. The amount of like mental partitioning I've been doing to like stay sane in this little box. I've made peace with it. Like, you know, sitting in this spot and trying to turn my chair around and banging into the bed because there's no room to move. I don't have panic attacks anymore. But it's like there's so many things that I want to do in my life, so many lifestyle bits that are just on hold until I get a real home, like with some space, with a deck, you know, where I can spread out a little bit and like enjoy the aesthetic pleasures of life. You know, I mean, look at the size of my kitchen. Like that's my kitchen, you know, right there. I do a lot with that little induction heater, but there's just a lot of stuff that I just can't really take on. So many things that I'm excited to do when I have, you know, the house that I'm building is going to be small too. But compared to this, it'll be a palace. So yeah, I'm trying not to like actively fantasize because I'll just get too excited and start to get frustrated that it's taking so long. So I've sort of just not allowed myself to think about it. But once in a while, I just think like life's going to be so good when that happens. The most important part of that is just like the difference between this place and a house is the difference between total isolation and having friends, basically, because I can't invite people over here. Like, it just does not work. I mean, the only furniture in here is this bed. There's nowhere to be. When people have visited me, it's like I sit here in the computer chair and they sit around the corner there next to the closet and we like talk to each other over the top of the bed. and there's just nowhere to like kick back and relax. So, and there's nowhere for them to sleep. So I can't have company out here unless, you know, I'm sleeping with them. That's the only kind of company I can have. And believe it or not, it's not extremely common that ladies are interested in driving 4.5 hours from civilization to rough it in a little box in the wilderness and go shit in a hole in the ground. So, for the most part, guests are not possible out here. And having a house will completely change the game in that regard, because I can have parties if I want. I mean, it's it'll just be a whole different life in that aspect. So if I can't make friends in town here because there's nothing happening, there's no community, I can import community from places that do that. So that's going to be the biggest change. Also, I'll be able to get another cat. You heard me, Bob. Bob needs a friend. Look at him. Can't you tell he needs a friend? Like we're pretty good together. We're very chill. But he needs somebody to help him take out that energy, and also so that I can leave sometimes. He needs somebody here to hang with him when I'm gone, because he gets so sad when I'm gone. I'm not going to do it in here. There's just not enough space. You can barely stand it with one of them in here. But once I get that house built, first item of business is the second cat. It's going to change his life and mine. Bob loves other cats. I used to have another cat, and he loved her. He was her like little fan, followed her around everywhere. But she didn't like him, and things took a terrible turn after he went to the vet and had to break up the band. But long story there. But yeah, he would love to have a friend. He's just a little bud. He loves wrestling, loves cuddling. Right, Bob? Look at that. What a little performer. All right, I'm about to wrap this up. Give you a little vicarious Bob snuggling before I go. My hands are very cold. He probably doesn't like that. Oh, this pad is nice, though. Wish I had one of these the size of my whole bed. Yep, closing up, Claudia. This has been a really fun chat. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm sorry if I missed any important questions. I kind of got off rambling, and I stopped looking at the chat when I'm in the zone. But I appreciate the interactions that we're having here, and it's just, yeah, it's fun to share this life as much as I'm able to. Beautiful sunset happening back there. God, that's bright. All right, guys, I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Also, a little PS, I have sort of semi-resumed doing my Twitch streams. I'm doing it kind of not nearly as often, not as consistently, but I still do it once in a while. So if anyone is interested in video games, I'll probably do it tonight. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now, which is devouring my free time life. So pop in on me there if you want. All right, guys. Have a good one.